Yeah? Okay. We're in the week between Teruma and Tetzaveh, and this is the week of Zayin Adar, which marks both a happy and a sad moment. And I think that's the matzav that we are all in right now. It is Adar, and we are adjured to be happy. And I have to unfortunately say I'd like to dedicate the Shiur to two people who passed away just in this past week. This week. The first is this young lady who was horribly violated, and the one from Shiur Lumi. I don't know her Hebrew name. I don't know if they were Orit. Uri. And just a terrible, terrible tragedy. A violent beast, and it happened near the Gan Chayot, and I think that's really the point. Dismembered her, tortured her, who knows what else he did to her. And Hakiyas is Os Labas Yisrael. And I say that in the background also of the loss of another person who actually was able to bridge worlds and bring people to bless the Jewish people, in stark contrast to that sad episode from Hebron. Was Rabbi Yechiel Eckstein, who close family friends, his brother-in-law and sister, who was sitting Shiva in Yerushalayim, Rachel and Hillel Davis, members of my shul, prominent members of my shul. They were of the families that were involved in bringing me to Oceanside. Rabbinic family, and Rabbi Yechiel, I'll just talk about him for a second. I knew him personally through the family, but also there was an opportunity that I had to meet with him privately to discuss a sort of project, which I think that they are working on, which is, my idea was to present the case for blessing Israel to build the Beit HaMikdash by presenting the benefits and the positive roots of such a thing and how it would benefit the world. And by presenting the Beis HaMikdash in a way that's not just, karbanos and menachos, but that is merely part of the avoda that's going to be in Beit Shlishi. The truth is that according to some, the karbanos will be transformed into mostly vegetarian karbanos, carbonate toda, and so there'll be meat, but people will volunteer it, and it's not quite clear.
There will be meat?
I mean, I have no doubt that I don't know exactly, but there are shittos that say that the carbon that will be in the future Beit HaMikdash will be primarily carbon toda. And carbon toda is interesting because what you do is you bake 40 different types of bread, 10 in different models, and you have to share it with family and friends. And you're really creating just a great celebration in Yerushalayim, not different than Meiser Sheni. So if you keep that model in mind, it's really a gathering place of people to celebrate and to bask in the light of Hashem. Happiness, joy, shalom. Yerushalayim will then be Ir Shalom. And it's not just about, how we shech certain karbanos and how they, Kohanim, kept their feet warm, because that was a big issue, to have the marble floors. I saw a video it's a beautiful little museum. I took my parents, Zayin Gesund, who are back and safe and sound, Baruch Hashem, in Far Rockaway on the way to Florida, and tomorrow, as a matter of fact. And we went to the Museum of Jewish Music. Did you go there? It's in a quaint little street there in Ben Hillel. Something to see, just for the beautiful architecture of the rooms. But it shows all kinds of instruments, which is interesting. You think about an appropriate museum for Yerushalayim. Yeah, it is appropriate to say, what do you need all these instruments for? Because we're going to be assembling the great orchestra of the Levium. So how nice that we can bring together all the sounds of Jews throughout the ages. That's also what's going to be. And I will add to that, which I don't speak about it that often here, kind of allude to it, but I want to share with you, what I prepared to present Rabbi Eckstein with, and we pursued the idea a little bit, and then the Goyim and his administration didn't like it, so that was the problem. Maybe that'll change, I don't know. But the idea is, what is the Beit Shlishi for? Well, we know, the Navi tells us, that people will come every year for Sukkot. You know how the nations of the world come and they create a celebration, the streets of Yerushalayim? People will come to bless Israel. Now, what Rabbi Eckstein accomplished in his lifetime was to bring funding from Bible-believing Christians who believed what it said, evangelicals, that the Jews will be restored to their homeland, and that's the sign of the end times. Okay, they had a little extra chapter at the end.
Just a little.
We can leave that part out. But, like I heard once Malcolm Hoenlein say, many years ago about the Christian Zionist support for Israel. He said, you know what, we'll take the money and we'll worry about it later. Take the money, worry about it later. Now, not everybody agreed, and they were vehement and vocal critics. And at the Levaya, which was this past Monday of Rabbi Eckstein, Rabbi Norman Land was quoted by his brother, Beryl Eckstein, who I knew personally, who I went to high school with, saying that Rabbi Lamb called Yechiel Eckstein, who was a Muslim of Hawaii, Oseh Chadashos Baal Milchamos, what we describe Hashem. He did a new innovative thing, and it created a lot of milchamos. I'm not here to judge one way or the other. All I can tell you is that my kesher was primarily through his sister, but also I had shared with him an idea of not going into the Christianity of it, but going into just the biblical vision of what the Beit Shlishi will be and how it will be a joyous place. And the piece that must be focused here is the medical piece. What people do not realize is that the purpose of the Beis HaMikdash will be healing, both physical and emotional. Now, what do I mean by that? People who never contract diseases will go there to daven, okay?
This includes the government?
Yes. Do you know that Avram Avinu was considered one of the greatest doctors of his time? Very good. I think you know everything, by the way. Do you know everything?
She comes to your Shiur.
She comes to my... She's teaching me. No, that's true. The Gemara says that he wore an amulet, but some people say it was an astrologia, which means that he understood the natural world. And this is where I'm going through the Shiur, so hang on. And I didn't give you the title, which is really Aaron the Kohen and the 7 wisdoms of the world. 7 wisdoms of the world. So the world will seek wisdom. One of the wisdoms that they will seek is medicine. And they will know that if they come to the Beis HaMikdash, there will be a great hospital there. Not the hospitals necessarily that we know, but by bringing tzedakah, karbanos, gifts, davening, praying, meeting with Kohanim, meeting with Levim, meeting with fellow Jews, increasing their faith, and praying, they will likely receive an influx of the Shekhinah, which is a healing force. How do I know this? Because the Navi in Yecheskel says it. Yecheskel says there's going to be a little stream of water. It's going to come out from the Kodesh Kodashim, right, where the Kruvim are. A small rivulet of water, which will eventually become a stream outside of Yerushalayim. And by that stream, they will plant trees, all different types of trees. And those trees will be like alim litrufa. That's what the Navi says. They will heal all sorts of diseases.
Did this happen in the time of Shlomo's Beis HaMikdash? That you have the most beautiful gardens in the world, underground springs coming from all different
Yes.
directions?
Yes, and the reason for that is because Shlomo's 20 or so years, it was actually just 26 years till he died, till the things started to come apart. But for those 20 plus years, and perhaps throughout the first Beis HaMikdash in total, there was great benefit of Hashem's presence coming out, which would bring an re-energizing of our physical maladies and weaknesses. call it a fountain of youth. I don't know if it's exactly that. I imagine that people might go there to be revitalized, come back 20 or 40 years younger. Because the Shekhinah force, and people will flock to it. Anybody who's not well, anybody who's looking for healing emotional problem, they're going to come. And I always say this in Shiurim, but people usually don't see it. What's the famous name of Jewish hospitals throughout America, at least? Mount Sinai, right? Why? What does that have to do with Mount Sinai? If you have to go up to a hospital, Mount Sinai, you're in big trouble. Did you ever climb Mount Sinai? Yeah. It's not easy to get to. Not a great name for a hospital. It means inaccessible. I mean, it may very well be.
Not a big one.
Yeah, but still, we're going to climb up 2 hours to get to the hospital. A lot can happen between that. Hatzola, you needed like 2 minutes refuah. And the answer is that the divine Shekhinah came down on Har Sinai, and Rashi says, and according to Medrash, Kol Amroim Esakolos Vesalapidim. Everybody saw. How could everybody see? Aren't there blind people? Aren't there people who lost limbs? And everybody was omed then Har Sinai. Yeah. Their bodies regenerated. Now today, in our day, we can understand this better than any previous generation. Why?
Because it's like he's heart coming out, he's going to get a new heart.
Right. We have the idea of transplants, which Israel, by the way, is a tremendous forerunner of. You see, and that's the point. People don't realize what's coming out of Israel. What's coming out of Israel is tremendous amount of medical technology, plus things that support agriculture and security, which is also shalom. That's our products. Energy, healing, help. It's already happening. And it's happening because close to a majority of the Jewish people are already here. Even though we are here, maybe not, how shall I say, in the ideal state for the Jewish people, as evidenced by the tragedy that I alluded to. But this fellow, Rabbi Eckstein, convinced evangelicals who wanted to bless Israel and say to them, look, there are a lot of poor Jews. Support the Jewish people, bless the Jewish people, and you will be blessed. And he raised 1.3 billion shkolim for Israel, distributed through the Joint Distribution Committee to the poorest of Jews all over the world. I don't know if you ever saw his constant. You ever go to Ben Gurion Airport and see him on the way out? Of the run. When you come out of the jet, they have this walkway. That was the guy walking everybody down and shaking hands with all the different minorities. A really noble vision. Okay, and I'm not here to speak about it from a halachic point of view or a shkafic point of view. I'm just telling the facts. The facts are that he brought a lot of money to poor Jews all around the world, to the tune of $140 million a year. A year. So we're talking about actually probably the single most successful Jewish fundraiser in the world. In the world. And how chaval, he died at a young age of 67. Boy, if he had another 20 years or so, just do the math, Anyway, so I think it's, however you look at it, the theological part is difficult, but the concept that the wealth will pour into Israel because people will see our benefit and our love. So when you talk about the Bayit Shlishi, please talk about it to people in the way as it's meant to be. A place of song, a place of celebration, a place of healing, a place of health, a place of faith and prayer and Torah. The world will come to learn Torah. And that really is my segue into today's shiur. Let's talk a few questions about the menorah. Because what the menorah is not what you think. Now, the menorah, as I will tell you now, symbolizes something far greater than light. Did the Beis HaMikdash need any light? Was it lit? Was it there for?
Even the windows were
Light came from
Right.
inside.
Light came from inside out, not outside in. So that's the first question. How are the windows shaped? Who knows this one? How are the windows shaped?
Wider on the inside and narrower.
What's that geometric shape called? What's that called? a trapezoid, or on a simple basis, a triangle. A triangle, right? When the Rambam's Geniza was discovered in Cairo by two old ladies, and they later sold it to Oxford Library, right? Two tourists. What? And then Solomon Schechter had it, and he was the one who made it famous. They have a diagram handwritten by the Rambam of how the menorah looked. Does anybody know about that diagram from the Rambam? Two things out of that diagram. One, it's like the Rambam's Shita was, at least in the diagram, is that the menorah was triangular. Okay? It was a triangle at the base. And more than that, Chabad does it because they follow the Rambam, because the Rebbe wanted to do it as a Rambam. I have one of those menorahs, by the way, a little one and a big one not. And that brings us to the Arch of Titus also, because there, what is it? It's the semicircle. Circle. Right? Circle. Hang on to that.
There were many menorahs in the base of Mikdash.
Correct.
Like 18 or 16?
Well, we know that Shlomo HaMelech made 10 menorahs, at least. He made 10 of a lot of things. You want to know why?
Yes.
He was trying to fix the world in its complete sense with the 10 utterances, Aseres HaDibros, the 10 Spheros, the 10 nations whose land of Eretz Yisrael we need to take, 7 Canaanim and the 3 on the other side of the Yarden. He went for broke. He went for everything. Now I'll tell you one more thing from Shlomo. It's amazing. He made something called the Yam Shel Shlomo. You know what the Yam Shel Shlomo is? It was 4 oxen on each side, giant cast out of bronze, copper, bronze, whatever, yeah, bronze. And it held a reservoir of water that was massive, a massive bronze reservoir that was the water that was used for the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, so which other animals were depicted in the Beis HaMikdash? There was no Shiur, there was no ox on the inside. He put oxes on the outside. We associate the Shiur with who? Yosef, right? And there were Kruvim inside. The children Kruvim were in the Kodesh Kodashim. Who do they represent, by the way? It's either Am Yisrael or the Avos and Imos. How do you like that? The Avos and the Imahos, male and female, who were able to be the receptacle for Hashem's Torah in the world. That's what it really is, okay? And then bring it outward. So the paroches, according to Rashi and according to Yerushalmi, had kruvim that looked like animals. Which animals? Not animals. Not the kruvim in the Aron Kodesh. It was 4 children, a boy and a girl. A boy and a girl, okay? And I think the most plausible explanation is, like you said, Bnei Yisrael. The children were the mashkon, were the security. That you're going to teach your children Torah. But more importantly than that, they do represent that without the schus of the avos, right, the Torah doesn't come down through us. Schus avos. Yes. And on the parochet, the covering of the Mishkan was known as. There were how many coverings on the Mishkan? We've been learning. This is a test on last week's Parsha. 3. The first covering was known as the Mishkan. On the Mishkan, let's discuss that for a second. It was made out of a fabric that was woven together of 4 basic types of threads. 3 of wool, 1 of linen. Problem?
Yeah,
But it wasn't the Beis Hamikdash, so it doesn't apply.
But why do we want shatnez at all? It's like, okay,
Because it
it's
shows
kosher,
that-
but you know.
Maybe because it shows that Hashem is the boss. He said you should wear shabbos, but in the Beis Hamikdash he said you could, so that's what it is.
Not only did he say you could, he said you have to. Wait, listen to this. So he demanded shatnez. 4 strings, each of those strings was 6 bound. In other words, you took 6 woolen strands, dyed them the 3 main colors. What are the 3 main colors? Tcheles, Argaman, Tolat Shani. Tcheles is the bluish green, right? Argaman is purple, and the last color is the red. And then the linen is white, pure white. When you wrap those things together, we get a 24-strand thread. That's a thick thread. Yes, there you go. It's exact. Where's the only place that you're allowed to have shotness? In tzitzis. Hang on to that a second. So there's a theme of tzitzis. What were the two creatures that were on the paroches? One on the inside, one on the outside. The lion was on the outside, a lion-like figure on the outside, twice. One was visible on the actual Ohel Moed, and one was on the big chotzer surrounding it. There were two. All right? And on the inside was a bird. Which bird? The eagle. Where do these, and then of course there were kruvim, which is people. Does that ring a bell, anybody? Let me list out the four. Lion, ox from Shlomo HaMelech. What? The Merkava. When Yecheskel saw the vision of the Shechina leaving the Beis Hamikdash in Bayis Rishon, and then immediately to be replaced by the future Beis Hamikdash model, there were four creatures that we know in the Merkava. It's the face of a human, the face of an eagle, the face of a ox, and the face of a lion. So what does Shlomo do? This is my theory. Why did Shlomo make this giant shor? It completed the picture. It completed the Merkava. That was the whole thing of Shlomo. He wants everything here. So he says there's a part of the Merkava that we need. Sure, we need that koach of Yosef in the world, right? Anyway, so we come on to a couple of curiosities here. First of all, why do we need kruvim? Why do we need kruvim? That's number one. The second, let's go to the menorah. Now, leading out to the menorah, the Aron had badim. Badim are the staves. It could never be removed, right? But there was a miracle that happened to the staves. Just the whole area of the Aron Kodesh was miraculous and above space, and it didn't make sense, the space of the Aron. But the badim actually protruded by miracle. They moved 10 amos, okay, forward and pushed the parochet outward. That parochet with the lion and the eagle on it, right? The inside paroches, which also had those, outward, pointing at two kalim. Which kalim did it point at? The menorah and the shulchan. It was like pointing at them. So Chazal tell us that this was a demonstration of just how much Hashem wanted to pour blessing. The images of a mother feeding her child. You understand? Right? Feeding a child. So that there is sustenance coming from inside, protruding outside, just like a mother feeds her child. Mother's milk. Okay? That's exactly what Chazal say. So Hashem wants to give all this. More than a mother. What happens if a mother can't feed her child? How does she feel? Pain. Physical pain. It's physically painful for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He can't provide. What was he providing? Menorah on the one hand, shulchan on the other hand. So let's analyze the menorah for a moment. First thing that we said about it was what? Machlokas, whether it was triangular or spherical, number one. Number two, it actually had three shapes that were connected to it. What are the three shapes of the ornaments of the menorah? And I did a pretty exhaustive search. There's not a lot written about it, but there are three shapes.
Flower cup and something.
Right, a cup which is a gevia, which the Rambam made into an upside-down triangle. Rashi says it's a narrow glass. What do you call those glasses? Oh, there's a name for it. What? No, when you drink wine from like a champagne glass, there's a name for it. It's a goblet. What? A flute, something like that, where it's wider and narrowing out. So everybody thinks Well, that's how you have a cup, because you have it open like a flute. Yeah, that is like a flute. And then you're drinking. No, Ram turns it upside down. If you look at the diagram of the Rambam, it's all triangles pointing at each other and pointing towards the knobs, the kaftorim, which are perfect spheres. Rashi says they're like apples. They're round like apples. And then there's flowers. How many of each? Take the numbers down. This, again, I looked far and wide for explanations. There are some, but not a lot. There were 22 triangles. I'm going to use the Rambam's word. 22 cups, 11 apples or spheres, and 9 flowers. What in the world could that mean? What in the world could that mean? What is the message of the menorah? So that's number one. The next thing about the menorah is we know how many branches does it have to have. How many branches does it have to have? 7. And what do we know about the branches? Where does the fire go? Face towards the center, right? And which candle burns forever? Which one never went out? The Ner Ma'aravi, the one that was closest to the Aron Kodesh. From there, they were able to light all the other ones. Okay, it never went out. So question number 1, why doesn't the center one be the one that doesn't go out? Why do you need a Ner Ma'aravi for it? And an amazing thing, I saw in the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, there's no mitzvah to make places to put the candles. All you got to do is make the kanim of the menorah. The shape of the menorah is a mitzvah down to the final detail. What's not a mitzvah is what's going to hold the oil on the wicks. No, there's nothing, no information given. That's up to you. You decide. Yeah, he had to clean up the... Obviously, they had a little bowl on top that contained the wicks and the wine, but the Torah doesn't focus on it. It's almost as if the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says it's not even part of the mitzvah. It's just, yeah. The making of the menorah does not include commandments about how the oil and the wicks are supposed to be designed and held. It could have been a gviya. It could have been a para. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say put it into a gviya. Put it into one of them. Maybe make 3 and 3. You know, only the konim have these mitzvos. But where we hold the fire itself, there's no mitzvah. It's an astonishing thing. The Orach Chaim points that out. Doesn't give an answer. All right. Now, what else about the menorah is very unusual? Okay.
But it couldn't have steps going up to it.
That's the mizbeach. It did have steps. It did have steps.
Miksheh.
Very good. It's miksheh. It could not be made out of many pieces of gold. That would have been the easy way to do it. You make straight gold. You know, you have all different forms. You pour the gold into pipes, and then you craft flowers and one miksheh, one giant block of gold, from whence you've got to carve out all these very intricate designs.
Well, this is what Moshe asked Hashem to show the picture.
Right. Some people want to say, I saw that Perush, that's why Moshe had so much trouble. Not because you can't figure out how to make a cup and a flower. He could figure that out. But how do you make it out of one block of gold? That requires a knowledge. So what happened? So it says, Rashi says that they threw it into the fire, a big block, kikar of gold, and what comes out? The menorah. Does that remind you of anything? Does that remind you of anything? The Egel Azav. So what's that all about? What? It's the Egel Azav? It went thrown into the fire and it emerges out? There's some very deep comparison there. Some people say, well, it doesn't mean exactly they threw it into the fire. It means that it was so hard to. Okay, fine. Pashup shot. It was thrown into the fire. I'll take Rashi on his word.
Maybe it's a kapara on Egel HaZahav.
Could be. Hold on to that. Could be. Hold on to that. There's some connection there. All right. So, that miksha is the. I'll just ask you a few more questions. The Arch of Titus showed the menorah. How did it show the menorah? As we said, in a sphere. What happened to that menorah? Does anybody know?
My father used to tell my father
been to the Vatican.
Can't go to the Vatican.
There are at least 2 places that supposedly it is, one in some abbey somewhere and one in the Vatican itself. Rabbi Benjamin Blech, who's the Rav of my shul before me, and he has been to the Vatican and he's done a lot of research on the subject, had access to the cardinal who is the official keeper of all of the Jewish artifacts. There's one bishop, one cardinal, that's his job. He maintains all the Jewish stolen objects. And Rabbi Blech asked him, so how many objects are there that you stole from us? He said, about 6 million. And Rabbi Blech says, listen to that number, about 6 million. 6 million manuscripts and objects to art and whatever else. And he said that the bishop told him, without any doubt, that the paroches of Bayit Sheni is in the Vatican. What about the menorah? I heard from somebody else that the menorah is there. But the other people, they say, well, Rome was sacked in 455, and from there we don't know where it is. But I tend to believe that it's there. I think you'd put your odds. At least it's 2 out of 3. There's 2 out of 3 explanations. Either in this place, or the third place is that it went to Carthage, which is where the Mongols and the Vandals, whatever they were, took it to. Okay.
Are these things going to come back to us? Or they should come, or how's it going to happen? Bring it to us?
Okay. So the answer to your question is, the fire is there, but not necessarily. Well, the menorah was one of the things that is relevant to Geniza. And I don't want to go too much into that right now, because we'll do that another time. The things that were hidden in the Beis HaMikdash, which things and why. But suffice it to say that it is part of the fire of the menorah, certainly was. Okay.
But after the Korban Bayit Rishon, wasn't the menorah hidden?
That's what I'm saying. Certain things were put into Geniza, and certain things were reproduced. Remember, the Chashmonayim were the ones that began the menorah that was stolen by Antiochus. We know that the menorah from Bayit Sheni was stolen by Antiochus. Actually, you know how? Because the secular high priest, Menelaus, owed him money. He gave it to him. He paid off his debts to Antiochus using the Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash. One of the saddest stories of that very dark period, which was Greece, the Hellenist involvement, which of course has a connection to Hanukkah, which has a connection to the menorah. It's all the same story. But the idea being that that menorah, the Bayit Sheni, needed to be replaced. And they started with a very simple menorah. Made out of what? You know what? Some say even wood. Some say it was lead. And then eventually, as the community organized itself and prospered, they made another one. I made a gold one.
Was it a different shape, you say?
No, it can't be, because we have a mitzvah. Vasuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. The Rambam learns it's a perpetual mitzvah. If you have your ability to build it, you've got to go build it.
So why is that highest thing circular?
That's part of the problem. We don't, So some people say, well, that was another menorah.